What's up, y'all? Welcome to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, hey. If this is your first time joining me on today, welcome. It's here we use information from celestial bodies to help us gain a better understanding of our favorite celebrities, world events, but most importantly, our damn selves. So with that in mind, today I am coming to you guys with another celebrity birth chart reading, this time on none other than Joel Olsteen. I don't know much about this man, but I do know that I've seen him on my mother's television many a Sundays, all right? He is a mega pastor, or a pastor of a mega church, rather, and the girls go up for him, okay? The girls will give him all of their coin every Sunday, faithfully. He makes a lot of money. And I actually remember when I lived in Houston a few years back, my office that I worked at was literally right across the street from his church. Huge. I've seen it in person. And that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge with Joel Olsteen goes. However, he's been in the media lately, this time because a plumber was working on a toilet in the church, came across a hole in the wall that contained like $600,000 worth of like cash and checks and envelopes and all that stuff. And so what does he do? His dumb ass turns in the money, right? And never hears from the church again. And he does so hoping that he would receive some type of reward for being honest and all of that good stuff. And as if that wasn't enough, there was a lot of blowback once authorities discovered that the $600,000 just so happened to match up with there being $600,000, I guess, that was stolen from the church at some point. So supposedly this is that same stolen money, but like people are questioning why was it in a hole in the wall. And I think we all know the answer to that question. But today, I just wanted to put this into more of an astrological context to really analyze Joel Osteen's personality profile, because it goes without saying, the man is scammiana, like many of these pastors in these mega huge churches. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Joel Olsteen was born March 5th, 1963 in Houston, Texas, making him a Pisces sun. And if you know anything about Pisces, specifically the darker nature of Pisces can be all about fraud, right? Dark-sided Pisces can be fraudulent. They can be thieves. They can be liars. They can be scammers. They can be people who engage in shisty activity. That in tandem with him being a birth number 5. The number 5 is crafty. The number 5 is known for plotting and its shiftiness. So, right off rip, it's the perfect storm for a person who can be potentially, scam material, Joanne the scammer material, someone who is not who they appear to be, or who could be engaging in fraudulent behavior and or activity. Okay. Now, it just so happens that Joel Osteen's sun, which is at the 14th degree, which also reduces to 5. So, once again, we have a double dose of that energy, is conjoined to his Chiron. And Sun conjoined to Chiron in Pisces, once again, amplifies this element of there being something suspicious. Like, these are people who can actually be really, there could be something very illegitimate about how they present themselves. Because you have to keep in mind, the sun is our claim to fame, what we're known for. It's our popularity, so to speak. So on one hand, you could look at him being a Pisces as being very symbolic of, being a religious or spiritual leader. His sun is also conjoined to Jupiter. So that conjunction could also deal with him being a preacher. Jupiter literally is the planet of preachers, and him being the head of a mega church, a really big church. Very much sun conjoined to Jupiter in Pisces. However, the fact that his sun is also conjoined to Chiron could make it so that, once again, not only could something be kind of disingenuous about how he presents himself, it could also point to where there could be just something about him that may be scandalous, deficient, like something about his, altruistic nature. That's is one of the biggest, telltale signs of somebody who could be just really full of shit. Pisces sun conjoined to Chiron. It could also even deal with him being somebody who could, be putting on airs, or who could just be incredibly fake. So I thought that was really interesting as well. And I couldn't help but notice that his sun is forming an opposition to Pluto in Virgo. And that could deal with him also being involved in some shady activity, criminal activity. It makes me also question the people who work for him. A lot of these people may have employees, secretaries, staff, a host of people that they work for who could get their hands dirty. And that's another way that you could look at this, especially if we're talking about a person who is liable to engage in things such as fraudulent activity, scamming, theft. Pisces is the sign of theft. So once again, having his sun conjoin the Chiron in Pisces and opposing Pluto, and we double back to the money that was found in the hole in the wall. Are we checking the secretaries? Who is responsible for keeping up the books? These are questions that I'm hoping authorities are really digging through. Another way that Joel Osteen's sun Pluto opposition can play out is it could also make him very power hungry and someone who may not be that great to work for either. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were claims of him just being a dick, or him just being a very unpleasant boss or whatever, just not really nice, not really somebody that people would want to engage with or deal with. And a lot of that comes from these people being very much micromanaging. And despite this very soft-spoken, all loving and kind and compassionate, super sweet Pisces persona that he portrays, that opposition to Pluto could also point towards him having a more sinister dark side, where he is, once again, very controlling, micromanaging, and where he could just be, once again, a nasty person. This is also reinforced with his Mercury conjoined to Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. That could be a person who could be really cold-hearted all day, very sadistic, exploitive, a person whose mind, their number one mindset is capital and gain, which is absolutely backed and supported by the fact that he's a Capricorn South Node. I don't know about you, but I do not want my pastor, even if I were to be someone who's actually religious, right? I wouldn't want my pastor or spiritual and or religious leader to be a Capricorn South Node. I just don't, because I would have a really hard time feeling like they're in it because it's something that, is emotionally fulfilling to them. Which, that can be true. There can be multiple truths, but, even when you consider just the entirety of Joel Osteen's chart, it pretty much amplifies the fact that as a Capricorn South Node, these are people who are just naturally made to, they just want what they can get out of things. Jeff Bezos has Capricorn on the South Node, which, the same guy who runs Amazon, which is an incredibly exploitive corporation. And then you have a mega pastor, a church mega pastor. The fact that they both share that in common is kind of disturbing to me. So, and it's also very telling. And on top of that, Joel Osteen's Saturn is squaring Neptune. So not only can he be very just capitalistic in nature, but he's liable to cut corners. I mean, his Neptune is in Scorpio, so he's willing to, dibble and dabble and get into some shady things if need be. It also reinforces him potentially being into theft and all kinds of stuff. These are people who can really get into some stuff, okay? In fact, with that Sun, Pluto, Virgo opposition, I wouldn't be surprised if he hired, a contract worker, whether it be like, contracting another, plumber or somebody to drill a hole in the wall of the church and put that missing money in there. So he's into some stuff. He's also a Cancer moon with his Cancer moon conjunct that North Node. These are people where, depending on how the moon or the condition of the moon can be into money laundering. Plain and simple. And the fact that his moon is forming a semi-square to that Pluto does not help. Because it does give either like money laundering vibes or like scamming vibes. Somebody also mentioned that like the potential motive for him stealing that money from himself could even be to like commit insurance fraud, which is worth mentioning that, Neptune and Scorpio deals with insurance. Scorpio in and of itself deals with insurance, but his Neptune and Scorpio squaring Saturn could deal with him trying to cheat the system, trying to scam the government, so to speak. Then having his Cancer moon forming a semi-square to Pluto, once again, could deal with where maybe he's hired somebody to help him, do some funny business or, do some insurance fraud. Hell, he's even the type, based on his chart, that might try to evade his taxes. I wouldn't be surprised if he had some tax issues down the pipeline. The nigga might not pay his taxes. So, with all of that being said, it's just really interesting to see. These are people who a lot of times can get really far just because of that conjunction, that three-way conjunction between his Sun, Chiron, and Jupiter. Because, people will be too distracted by, this super altruistic image that he projects, right? His preaching, the nice guy thing. A lot of times people are really distracted and put off by it. But I see right through his ass. He's also a Leo Mars with his Mars conjoined to that North Node. And, that in and of itself could also deal with a person who may be very self-serving. A lot of times these are people who are more concerned about being a celebrity, being popular, more than anything. Or if I'm being nice, it could deal with him legitimately attracting a lot of fame and popularity. He also has his Venus at the first degree of Aquarius conjunct his Capricorn South Node. So something else that could definitely signify him, being someone who is propped up when it comes to like money from other people. But the opposition that his Venus is making to Mars could just make him somebody who is mainly motivated by that. You know what I mean? Now, this conjunction to his South Node, that Venus conjunction anyway, could also have a lot to do with there being trouble at home. I know he's a married man, but like most of these pastors, he probably has a little tenderoni on the side. He does have Venus in opposition to the moon. He might not even live with his wife, to be honest. Or they may have a relationship that could be estranged or may have been at some point. Hell, with him having his Sun in opposition to Pluto, he might be the type to sleep with his employees as well. So this is somebody I really wouldn't put anything past him. Okay, his Jupiter is forming a trine to his North Node. So on a more positive note, that can deal with a part of his purpose and a part of him, in his passion involving being a preacher. But with his moon forming a sesqui square to Chiron, once again, this fraudulent component kind of comes into play. These are people who are liable to fake things, as mentioned before. It could also even deal with where his wife could be in on it. So all in all, for the most part, he does have a chart of a person who is just very questionable in their ethics, and people who just ultimately may not be who they are. Okay, he could definitely be someone who is just perpetrating. And if that's what people feel comfortable giving their money to, by golly, go right ahead. Even though you have no sure way of knowing exactly where his money goes towards. I mean, these are people nothing is ever really what it seems with them. So I just would have a really hard time if I were somebody who was actually a member of his church, really trusting a person like that, and knowing that their motives are ultimately their bottom line, and to come out of a situation as easy as possible. Specifically when we're talking about something like faith or like religion or whatever. If you're somebody supposed to help people to kind of bridge that connection between themselves and God or whatever, that's a role where it does require you to be a person who has some type of moral integrity. And I can almost guarantee if you're talking about, or if we're dealing with a person who has, hundreds of thousands of members at their church and are almost even living rock star lifestyles, that's going to be very hard to come by. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Y'all drop down in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of Joel Osteen's charts. And yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next video. Bye.